Hey guys, it's Abby, and today I am going to be talking about 5 different ways to color your UV resin or two-part resin. Actually, it doesn't really matter. It could be for both, but last time in my resins basic video, I kind of touched on what I like to use to color my resins, but I realized I didn't really show how I color it or how they turn out. So we're going to take a little more in-depth look at coloring resin. I have my powder pigments, and these are Pearl X pigments, but they can be any brand. You can even use eyeshadow, which I have done a video on in the past. So if you have expired eyeshadow, maybe consider using it in resin. I was thinking I would make a purple sample from each type of pigment that I'm going to use, and we can compare them. Let's make our first sample. I don't think I mentioned this in my basics video, but lately I like to mix my resin in silicone molds because if it's not enough resin to save, you can just cure it. It's easy to clean, and it was actually in Polymomo T's video that I saw that, and I thought it was genius. Now this is my problem. I always put too much pigment in, and especially with the powder, if the light doesn't reach all the way through, it's not going to cure properly. And with Pearl X, a little goes a very long way. I hope this is going to be enough resin for this little mold. Alrighty then, this one's ready. I'm going to go pop it into the UV lamp, and then we'll move on to our next one. My first sample is back from the UV lamp. Let's see if it cured properly. I think it's okay. Yeah, actually looks really good. So that is Pearl X pigment. You can see the shine and how opaque it is. Let's move on to the next one. Next are these guys. These are my liquid pigments from Pariko, and I've used these in many videos. I think I even have like a swatching video from when I first got them, and these are amazing. I've had them forever. You only use like a drop or two each time, so they're gonna last forever. Anyway, let's make a purple heart. We're just gonna repeat the same steps, about the same amount of resin. I'm gonna say 2 drops. Let's give this a mix. That looks good. Normally I would put some glitter in it, but today we're just keeping it simple. If you're seeing a lot of air bubbles and your mold is deep, you can either work in layers or take your lighter and go over it a few times as you add the resin. Because especially with these translucent pieces, you want them to look nice and clear. Unless you're going for a bubbly piece, which could be possible. I do that with a lot of like ocean, nautical type pieces. That seems good. I'm gonna pop the bubbles on the surface, and I'm gonna pop this one into the lamp as well. And we're back. I see a few air bubbles on the surface there, but you can deal with that just by doming your piece with a thin layer. So I don't usually worry about that too much as long as I get the big bubbles. And here we have our shiny, pretty piece. Looks better if you hold it up to the light, but it is a very pretty purple. Next we have another liquid pigment, but these are Opaque Pastel pigments, and I love these very much. I love the whole lineup, and I guess we'll take the purple. With the opaque pigments, you definitely want to use enough so the color shows and it's not translucent tea. That's not a word, but it is now. But you also don't want to put too much pigment in or the resin's not going to cure. There's like a fine line of resin to pigment ratio, and I'm still kind of struggling with it. So with pigments like these, I do like to make bigger batches and save them. And that's something I want to talk about next time, about like what to do with leftover resin or resin storage. And I made too much resin again. Off to the UV lamp I go. I am back. It's the moment of truth. This is the one that I'm probably most worried about not curing, so let's see. I did put it under the lamp twice, once on both sides, and whoa, it actually turned out even nicer than the translucent one. This one's kind of like speckled with air bubbles, but this one turned out really nice. Don't they look kind of yummy? Or is that just me? Maybe I'm hungry. On to the next method. My favorite. Glitters. You can't really mess with colors when you're working with glitters, though you can mix glitters to get a different look, but These are probably the easiest way to get started. These are chunky leafy glitters, but you can use fine glitters, you can use super chunky glitters, you can use different shaped glitters and stuff, and there's so much potential, and I mean, who doesn't like glitter? So like I was saying, glitters are a good way to get started because they cure easily. I think you don't have to worry too much about the ratio unless you put way too much glitter in and it's too dense that the inner part of the piece doesn't cure, but you usually don't have to worry about that too much, I found. Normally I'd actually probably put in a little bit more glitter, but I think we're gonna go with that today. It looks pretty good. With chunky glitters like this though, you do have to worry about air bubbles, so I'm not too worried for this piece, but if you're making pieces to sell or maybe give as a gift, you might want to try and pop the air bubbles, whoops, in between layers. Are we ready for the grand reveal? Here is the glitter piece, and looks like we got a solid cure. Isn't that pretty? I love glitter so much. Last one for today, acrylic paint. Now, I will be honest and say I do not use acrylic paint to color my resin very often because I have heard that resin and paint clash, especially the UV type, but I think that's because you have to put a lot more paint in than you do pigments because it's not as concentrated. I don't know, that sounded good in my head, but I don't know if that's actually true. But anyway, I do know my friend Polymomo T uses acrylic paint to color his UV resin and it works fine. And I do know that acrylic paint is a lot cheaper than UV resin pigments or pigments in general. So while I do not use this method often, I do think it is worth mentioning. It's also really nice because you can pretty much buy the color you want and not have to mix it yourself. And this is a pearl paint, so you get a little bit of everything with this. And we're gonna cross our fingers and pray that it cures. All right, let's give that a go. It is time to unmold, demold. I don't know which it is. Demold? I think it's demold. Unmold? I don't know. Anyway, it's time to take the last heart out of the mold, and looks like we got a good cure on that one too. I am actually impressed. I may start using acrylic paints because I have a bunch of colors and I don't paint, so I feel like this is a good way to use them. Anyway, today I made 5 samples from 5 different types of pigments. I don't know, would you call glitter a pigment? Not sure, but 5 different ways to color your UV resin, and each pigment or glitter is different and beautiful in its own way. So let me know which one you like the best and which one you think you'll try. There are a few other pigments that I want to try in the future, but I don't know if they work properly yet, so I think that's another video. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you have any requests, let me know, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!